What's up, everyone? We just wrapped up episode 4 of analyzing this man's trades and all of his YOLO updates on Reddit. We're almost done. We have to get through 2024 yet, but we've gotten through everything leading into it. So what I want to do in this video is just kind of summarize what we've found so far, and it's because it's fascinating to me. It genuinely is fascinating to me. So I need to start with a couple general disclaimers because I know that all of this stuff is super sensitive with people. The reason why I'm doing this is because I've been trading for a long time, and it's not common that you come across really uncommon things in markets. And what I mean is when I look through a lot of what he's done, there are multiple displays of really uncommon behaviors that are fascinating to me. It's as if I'm looking at nature and I see an anomaly and it's there. I can see what it's doing loosely. I don't understand what it's doing, but I can see it. So it's fascinating to me. I am not doing any of this in the context of trying to replicate what he does. I don't think anybody can replicate what he does. And I think that's by design. I think that's part of why he's been successful, is because there absolutely is an element of survivorship bias in what he does. It is what it is. So the last thing I want to offer here is I'm still relatively new to this. So I am not going to pretend like I know everything that's going on, because I don't. I've traded GameStop a lot through its movements from an options trading perspective. But with respect to getting into the story, the background, understanding the catalyst, the characters, all of those kinds of things, I'm brand new to this thing. I really started digging in back in May. So I've probably spent a few hundred hours on it at this point, which is really insignificant compared to a lot of other people. I want to make all of that super clear. I am applying the analysis from the perspective of a trader first and foremost, and I want to talk about that. Now, let's start with a quick overview of what we've done and what we've found. And when I say we, it's because I've done most of these on, not most, all of this on the Saturday night GME live stream. So I've purposefully done it with the community so that you all can help me understand what I'm looking at, because there's a lot of context that I don't have. So what we did is literally go all the way back to the very, very first post. We went all the way down to the bottom. Then I started logging a few data points, and this is all duplicative. I'm not looking for anything to be like nice or pretty here. This is literally just for my eyes to track what's going on. The entire objective of this exercise was not to generate a large data set for later manipulation. It was literally for me to go line by line, understand each change, when it happened, what did the market look like when it happened, what did the commentary look like around when it happened, to fully understand stuff. Because it's easy to share things that we've heard secondhand, we might loosely understand, but I demand firsthand information as close as I can get to it, because there's a lot open for interpretation and there's a lot of things that can get lost in the details, and the devil is in the details. That's where I focus. So that's why I did this. I wanted to get a really good sense of what this whole thing looked like, literally post by post. So what do we notice? A lot of things. Now, I started tracking this on the 1st of September of 2020. That's not the first update that he has. I started tracking them a little bit further in because we were going line by line previously, and kind of getting a qualitative assessment of some of the changes. So from this point forward, he already had built a little bit of an account. He didn't start with his $100,000, but there's a few things that shocked me right from the beginning. And the very first one is I always thought that Roaring Kitty was primarily a stock trader. And this is my own naivete. I thought that because of things that I've heard, the way I've heard people talk about him, communities that are actually, like, I didn't know this, but quite against options. So I had just assumed that he was a stock trader, and that's why all of those artifacts were in place. But funny enough, the very first position that I see for him in his YOLO updates and Wall Street bets, and this is from 5 years ago, this is his first post on 8 Sep 2019, it's actually all options. And it's about a $100,000 account. Now, one of the things I identified here, again, from the live stream last night, is that he obviously had other stuff at this point in time. And we know that from some of his live streams, which is also very interesting. So for example, if we compare this date, again, this is the 8th of September, we can see the portfolio as it sits. This is showing what's in the portfolio, right? And we can see the total values and all that kind of stuff. And this all lines up. So this tells me that this isn't like a snapshot of what's in his portfolio. This is what he's currently holding. And it's 1,000 total calls across these different expirations, different strikes. Okay, now if we go to his YouTube channel and we grab one of these live streams, it doesn't really matter which one. Let's grab this one. So in the different live streams, he shows different elements of his tracker that actually show his percent of portfolio. I'm not sure if it's in this one. It's probably this one or this one, maybe. I just want to see if I can find yeah, okay, here it is. So if I get rid of this, and you can take a look at the percent of portfolio as he's scrolling around a little bit. And this is clearly after that, right? So this is 3/Aug 2020. So we already know that he has other stuff on at this point because he posts this one portfolio that's just GameStop, but at a later point in time that he clearly has other positions on. So again, don't mean anything one way or the other by it, but just general information. So as we go through the remainder of all these different trades, there's a couple things that I picked up pretty discreetly. The first thing is there's this thought process, rightfully so, the dude's been tremendously successful, but there's been this thought process that he's essentially like this perfect timing machine, that he's like pinpointing individual days that he knows something's going to happen and he's going to get in right before and then right after it, or that he knows something's going to happen at this point in time, so he's going to get in super early and wait until it happens. And it's all fair ideas because we're all guessing. What I can tell you definitively is that the value of his portfolio does not line up with that kind of timing premise. It generally shows elements of timing for sure. It does not line up with that kind of timing premise though. And what I mean is this. If we take a look at 5 Jan 2021, the total portfolio value at that point was 2.8 mil. It rises up to 7.368. Then it gets all the way up to 22 mil. Then it gets up to 48 mil. Then it gets down to 33. Then it trickles all the way down to 17 mil. Then it gets, so what I'm highlighting is as this is moving around, the portfolio value here is exhibiting massive volatility. That's not an artifact of really careful timing. What this is an artifact of is somebody that has supreme conviction in what they're doing, and they're exceedingly comfortable taking massive size trades and riding it out. And again, that's an entire skill set in and of itself. But what I want you to look at is his portfolio that went from 11 mil to almost 50 mil to 17 mil. How many of you would go through that path probably, right? Like most of us, if you have something that goes from 7 to 50, let's say you were even good enough to ride it to that kind of peak, there would have been exits for the overwhelming majority of that's life-changing money. But it's very clear that this is not what it's all about to him. And this actually, I think, bolsters the idea that there are other accounts. Because one of the ways that you can let something like this do this is if your livelihood doesn't depend on this, right? Because we know that he has a family. And obviously, he likes to play around, he likes to have fun, but I don't see him as an irresponsible husband or father. I see him as somebody who's trying to take care of his family. So if I'm trying to take care of my family and I have an account that probably isn't doing this, but is doing pretty well, then it gives me the leeway to kind of let this be whatever it's going to be. The other thing that we have to identify when we look at his overall approach is from this video, and it's not all the way in here, it's actually up here in the Why I'm Not a Value Investor section, but he talks about his willingness to accept lumpy returns, which makes a ton of sense. Sometimes it's going to be up, sometimes it's going to be down, and he phrases it up big, down big, right? And as I look across his portfolio, it's exactly what I see, him executing that exact idea. So from a trading perspective, I see a few things. The first thing is I see somebody that is not setting profit targets. And again, for most of us traditional full-time traders, we absolutely would set profit targets. And it's so that we don't go through this kind of volatility. And it's because most of us are taking a slightly slower but higher probabilistic approach to the outcomes. Whereas it's very clear in his case, this dude is very convicted. And again, even this, he doesn't even balk at this. $48 million worth of the account. Don't care. Clearly, don't care. Just let it go. Next day, it's down 10 plus mil. Don't care. And again, we can see this as we get closer in time in the 2024 timeframe where he's down over $200 million. So from a trading perspective, he has a different roadmap. And it's kind of like the idea behind trading squeezes, that you can't really apply a standard methodology to them. You have to understand the profit mechanism of a squeeze, the traits of squeezes, how they behave, their periodicity, their severity, their frequency, the precursors such as volume, all of those things. Once you have like a fingerprint, I call them, of the tendency, then you can create an approach around it. Well, for him, he's clearly trading this really concentrated approach, but it's highly specific to him. Because as I look at these things, the other thing I notice is he has a very strange way to manage these options. So when I went back to this video, he talks about the ways that he uses options very openly. He uses things that are typically leaps, meaning greater than a year out, further out in time. And there's a couple things that he talks about that clearly let me know he knows exactly what he's doing, right? Because obviously he trolls sometimes. He posted that meme where it was like the banana that had like options 101 or whatever, right? Like joking that he doesn't know what he's doing with options. But like clearly he does, because he talks about the siphoning of liquidity. He talks about essentially becoming an agent that's making your own markets. That's fascinating because again, this is happening 4 years ago, back in 2020, when he had a tiny relative size account to what he had when he came back in 2024. So it tells me that this isn't somebody that's just bumbling through options. He knows what he's doing. He knows how they operate. He even talks about the pricing of them a little bit earlier on, where he says he finds a lot of them to be too expensive. Again, that's probably some of the value investor methodology that he's also imparting on the options, which I totally get. We care about pricing of options. We don't want to pay too many vols for something because then it just puts you at a disadvantage. The fact that he's doing all that is interesting to me. The broader fact that I find so interesting is he seems to be managing these options based on time, not by value, not by return, not by price target, not by new catalyst, by time. And that I can't help but find truly fascinating, because there's artifacts of him holding options all the way into expiration. There's artifacts of him holding options very close to expiration, seemingly exercising right before. That's the example of 16 April of, 2021. Then there's artifacts of him closing options greater than 45 days out. Now, from this video, he says his average holding time is from 3 to 24 months, which, while that might seem like a crazy large range, it again elucidates what he's doing, which is not specifically pinpointing something, but it's him playing a general idea, in this case, stock go up for X, Y, and Z reason, and he has a ton of different reasons, obviously, but it's not this like perfect pricing mechanism. So, as you've noted, I got us through 2021. So we still have to go through 2024. And I am super eager to get into the 2024 updates. And I am dying to know what kind of changes, if any, occur in his approach, because I think we'll see it, because I can see a lot of what he's doing here, which is fascinating to me. So when we start up again on next Saturday, we'll go through in depth, just like this, step by step, update by update. We'll take a look at what GME looked like at the time of the update to get a sense of essentially what it looks like is going on and if there's a change in his methodology. Because again, from what I see from 2019, essentially through 2021, I see somebody who's using a tremendous amount of leverage backed by a tremendous amount of conviction that is not managing trades based on standard approach, things again like return, profit target, so on and so forth. but most of these are being managed by time. Because again, I use examples like this where the account is up 46 million, 47 million, 40 million, and he doesn't care. He just kind of floats right through that looking for seemingly more. But I actually don't know if there's a specific dollar target that he's, holding out until he gets to. It seems like he's just trying to ride this thing up, which again, I just can't help but find so very curious. So I want to see if when we get into 2024, if there's any changes to some of these metrics that I can see in terms of when money is being put into the account versus coming out of the account. We can see that versus seeing what kind of volatility he allows in the portfolio, which again, I already know most of 2024 because that's where I started looking at this stuff. And he allows a lot of volatility, but I want to see exactly how much. And so far, we're dealing with a true anomaly, and I am having literally so much fun trying to figure out what's going on here because it is so damn interesting. So I'm sure a lot of you have ideas that we should take a look at or have some thoughts on what's going on here. I would always love to hear it because most of you are what have allowed me to understand more of what's going on here. So I would love to hear your ideas on essentially what I'm sharing here, because again, I don't know. I'm just guessing. I'm going off of what I can see, coming up with the best conclusions I possibly can based on information. So if you have information that can help with that, I would love to see it. Now, as always, if there's anything you need, hit me up, be an outlier. I'll see you all later.